The WWE, like all companies, has a message they want to get across to their audience. Usually this will be one of power and positivity, but on occasion it can get lost as what's actually happening starts to seep through to fans' brains. For example, you can tell us that Bray Wyatt is a magical man who should be considered terrifying, but if he loses all the time, it doesn't take long before everybody figures out the truth. This could be more accurate than ever when we look at the promotion in a more general fashion because social media and the internet allow the messages to spread quicker and further than they ever have before. I imagine it's not what Vince McMahon would want. I'm Simon from WhatCulture and this is 10 things WWE are secretly telling fans about their future. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 10, the power is here. The recent WWE crown jewel was controversial at best. Already a problematic deal given the human rights issues that have been highlighted in Saudi Arabia, everything that happened at the inaugural event between the country and World Wrestling Entertainment was head-scratching. It was less sports entertainment and more propaganda vehicle. Still, the greatest Royal Rumble came and went with minimal fanfare, which cannot be said of what followed. If it wasn't bad enough that Evolution happened a few days prior, the situation fell through the floor after yet more immediate problems came to light. For a mere second, there was a suggestion WWE may have to cancel. As we know, they did not. And that's the message we've been getting for years. No matter the circumstances or how much public outcry there is, the show must go on, and that has happened time and time again. Somehow WWE seems to ride these waves out, but that doesn't make it any better. But it is something we should all take note of. Number 9, falling on deaf ears. There is an argument that secretly this has always been the way, and it's only in recent years it's become more apparent, but the narrative goes once upon a time Vince McMahon would listen to his audience, and now he doesn't. So if you used to boo a guy, they would go heel and vice versa. The company would shift gears depending on what an audience did. Now there have been blips that prove it's nothing overly new, but it is far more stated today and has been proven by the likes of John Cena, Roman Reigns, and to a lesser extent Becky Lynch. Although who knows what's going on with that. The lesson, of course, is that it doesn't matter what the fans do. If a direction has been set, it's unlikely to change, and that line of thinking is backed up when you remember the amount of money WWE is due to make over the next few years. Even SmackDown, which often gets in the headlines for half-heeled buildings, is in line to earn $1 billion. And when you're getting that kind of return, why would you think you've done something wrong? You're taking the idea of business and smashing it. Number 8, bite-sized entertainment. No matter how old you are or era you're living in, if you're a wrestling fan at some point you'll be asked why you watch. No matter what reason you give, the reply will usually be, it's all fake, right? It's boring at this point with the misunderstanding coming in that very statement. No one gets into wrestling hoping to add another combat sport to their list. They get into it because it's a form of entertainment like no other. Sometimes brilliant and sometimes downright ridiculous. If it speaks to you, then it's hard to put down. There's just something so bizarre about the whole concept. What has started happening in modern times, though, is the shift when it comes to the long term. Instead of lengthy storylines with defined beginnings and ends or characters that you can get to understand over the course of a few months, more often than not, we rattle through stories in mere weeks, not allowing anyone new to bite the bullet and get stuck in. As soon as something starts, it's already over and done with. For example, if you tuned in one week only to find that 7 days later the entire foundation had changed with superstars now angry at someone new, well, you're probably deciding this crazy roller coaster isn't for you and jump off it as soon as you can. Number 7, never say never. No wrestling fan ever truly believed Shawn Michaels would return to the ring. His retirement had been so powerful and his legacy so set in stone, it seemed as if it was one of those sticking points that actually would stick. Here we are in 2018, and HBK has made his triumphant comeback. I would never begrudge anyone of this and genuinely don't think it tarnishes what he has done in the industry at all. If someone of Michaels' caliber wants to do the odd match, then more power to him. What's most interesting about it is the doors that are now open once again. WWE has long touted the phrase never say never and has the evidence to back it up, and with Shawn, they've turned that dial up to 68,567. All of a sudden there were rumors of The Rock winning the Royal Rumble, even Steve Austin appearing at WrestleMania, and who are we to say it won't happen, as unlikely as it is? You've been slapped a year ago for making this prediction about Michaels, and the same could be said about Goldberg and his demolition of Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series 2016. So never assume you know the plan. It can always change. Number 6, the expectation. There is an antithesis to this, however, in terms of the weekly programming put on by WWE, especially when we're talking about Raw. Falling into production territory probably far more than we ever expected, most episodes could be fantasy booked before they've even begun simply because Vince McMahon and friends are very happy with their formula. You start the show with a promo segment and 9 times out of 10, you know exactly what's going to be said. There is a need for this in some sense given how wrestling has evolved over the years, but that doesn't mean logical twists and turns haven't fallen off a cliff in favour of the ordinary. And I get it to a certain point too. Writing TV is hard, and creating so much content each week is not easy, but that doesn't mean this format always translates into something that's fun to watch. The more we tick these boxes as well, the more it becomes the norm, and that's not ideal. Surprises are almost a lost art in WWE. It'd be nice if they came back here and there. Number 5, bigger, maybe better. Remember when pay-per-views were 3 hours long? That was nice, right? The culmination of a bunch of stories from TV that would be resolved on an event which ran a little longer than Raw or SmackDown to make it feel like a bigger deal. We don't get that anymore. With Raw extending to the same running length long ago and the arrival of the WWE Network, pay-per-views have been pushed and pushed to the point most people expect WrestleMania to become a 2-day event before long. It's not completely out of the realms of possibility given Mania 34 went over 6 hours. Whether or not this is a plus is going to vary wildly on the viewer, but the general consensus does seem to be it's not the greatest idea in the world, simply because you can have too much of a good thing. And sure, it could be said that fans in attendance get more bang for their buck, but surely quality is far more important than quantity. So many of the events would have been killer had they run shorter. I wouldn't expect this to shift anytime soon, especially as the network relies on time watched as a major stat. The longer a pay-per-view, the longer someone will sit in front of it, even if the actual viewing figures are dropping. So yeah, take it as that. Number 4, the new boss. If we look into the future and what could be a new structure at WWE, when Vince McMahon decides to call it a day, there is only one person in line for the throne. His name is Triple H. It would take something unbelievable to change that nowadays, and everything points to the fact that one day the game will take up the mantle of everything we see on TV. Thankfully, given what he's done so far, it should be an era to look forward to. Ever since Triple H convinced higher-ups to ditch whatever NXT was and turn it into what it is today, he's shown an aptitude for pro wrestling that has won a lot of people over. Rarely a takeover goes by that isn't met with rapturous applause, and while it's probably harder to book Raw and SmackDown just because the demographics are so different, he has all the potential in the world. Couldn't be a better replacement, all things considered. It's coming though, the only question being when. Before then, we can just observe his evolution, pun intended, down in Florida. Number 3, opening the door. At no point in history has the WWE been so open to working with other companies. Gone are the days when it'd be a shut door policy with the promotion happily talking with the likes of Evolve or Progress to keep their talent pool ticking over. In the last few weeks of this video going live, Evolve has basically taken on the role of a feeder system for NXT. In short, it's been wonderful. Guys who never would have made it before because of their size now have, and the makeup of what a pro wrestler should be has changed no end. No longer do you have to be 6'3" and 240 pounds to be accepted into the fold. There's a dozen different ways to get somebody's attention. And of course, there's the argument this is just WWE getting everybody under one roof to ensure they're in control of the situation, but with the industry booming from an indie perspective at the moment, and we're going to talk about that in a second, there's no point making too many wide accusations. It's what a lot of people were asking for over a very long period of time. Number 2, the future of marketing. This one is tough as I get it divides people down the middle. On the one hand, while you could argue that WWE's charitable endeavors are done to fuel its marketing, a point Stephanie McMahon herself has made, on the other, these organizations are still benefiting. For my money, it's kind of all that matters. On top of that, WWE does have a global platform, so awareness comes into play too. And sure, some segments on Raw wind a lot of people up as they feel the company is tooting its own horn a little too loudly, but again, from my vantage point, I would rather that than the alternative where nobody benefits. I don't think it will fall off the agenda anytime soon, so make of that what you will, but that is the direction WWE, like a lot of other companies in the modern day, have taken. Number 1, the boom. Ever since Stone Cold Steve Austin The Rock popped up in WWE and made the industry bigger than it has been in years, fans have been waiting for the boom to return. John Cena dipped his toe in the water a little bit, but his run was more longevity than lighting the world up with fire. The thing is, the boom actually happened, just wasn't in WWE. As the wrestling audience searched for alternatives away from the company to try and fill a gap that was missing, they stumbled across the indie scene and used that to turn a huge corner. We've long discussed how successful the likes of New Japan, Ring of Honor, PWG and the rest of them have become, and given how massive All In was, you'd have to say this was absolutely the case. Social media has helped no end as well, and more stars are being made away from the WWE than ever before, and in many ways, it was because Vince McMahon wasn't giving a certain portion of the crowd what they wanted. That's when your boom is staring you in the face.